and possibly lay projections, some bit of scenario building for the future. That's why we are talking of navigating Uganda's political future. What becomes of Uganda when these elections become repetitive? Some people have argued that the more elections you hold, the more democratic you become, because electoral competition becomes normalized and a culture. Others have argued that if elections become repetitive but the substance of elections becomes questionable, they lose legitimacy, voters lose interest, and as voter participation dwindles, elected officials lose the legitimacy of the citizenry over which they lead. A recent study, which I stumbled upon, but I think it's not online, revealed declining trends in voter participation over the different elections over the years. And questions are being raised. Have the voters lost interest? Have the voters become comfortable with the political status quo? Or is there something that we need to understand about the motives and incentives for voter participation? So we hope these conversations, as we widen them and extend them, will help us unravel some of these things and provide us with sufficient empirical material for understanding and processing and producing knowledge that will inform future understandings of Uganda's evolving electoral democracy. Today, we are privileged to host the Electoral Commission to tell us about preparedness for the 2026 polls. Representing the election is Commissioner Dr. Sali Simba Kayunga. Fortunately for us, Dr. Simba is not just a political scientist, but he's a professor of comparative politics. Many of us here have gone through his hands, and I think he's the right person, not only to be supervising elections management processes, but possibly also to talk to us about elections and the dynamics of managing an election management body. We all know that in Uganda and in Africa, we do not have elections management training institutions. Since we started holding elections in Uganda in 1950, the Uganda Management Institute has never adapted itself to training election managers. And the Electoral Commission itself has never constituted a unit for training citizens on how elections are managed. Perhaps maybe that would have started the process of producing expert practitioners in election management in Uganda that would spread to the African continent and help build the capacity of elections management bodies. However, we know that we have always learned on the job. Many of the things we learn on the job, and experience is a better teacher than the best of teachers that you can find in any school. So at this juncture, allow me to invite the Electoral Commission to take us through a conversation on preparedness and preparations for the 2026 elections, after which we will have a discussion and conversation, an open discussion and conversation that will inform both our learning from the Electoral Commission, but also the Electoral Commission learning from us and what the rest of the society outside thinks about these election processes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Edie. Participants, yesterday there was a very interesting discussion in the Electoral Commission on whether I'm the right person to come and represent it. Yeah, because going through the history of Electoral Commission or CBR, I'm part and parcel. I normally call myself 7+1 because the original founders were 7, 8, and I was number 9. I was number 9. So from that time, I've been part and parcel of this institution. Even during the challenging time, I had the honor in 2026 to do a difficult job. When there was something like a crisis, and my colleagues, I don't know why they thought so, that I was the right person to manage the crisis. So I was made acting ED, originally for 6 months. They continued increasing from 6 months to 3 years. I started getting alarmed because it was getting beyond what I had planned. So I've been part of the institution, and currently the discussion is how I continue being part of the institution without necessarily undermining the other responsibilities I've been given. Otherwise, I'm called Sali Simba, Senior Research Fellow, Center for Basic Research. Or you have deleted me without allowing me the right to defend myself. Okay. I've also been teaching at Makerere University, Department of Political Science and Public Administration, until at the beginning of this year, when I was informed I'm supposed to join Electoral Commission. So currently I'm one of the 7 commissioners of the Electoral Commission. I would say I'm happy to be back home, and I've always been coming here on a number of times, including on Tuesday I was here, though I could not participate in the proceedings. Otherwise, greetings from Electoral Commission. Greetings from Electoral Commission. Also, before I even go into the presentation, I would like to introduce people who are here, so that you know the nature of organization, and much as some of them might go away, they have some engagement at 4, but some of them have been in Electoral Commission for over 15 years, so they may even be the right people to respond to tough questions. So I will start with Mr. Charles Rwanga. I'm always confused because both of them are Christian names. Charles Rwanga is the acting head of election management. So he's the one who does all the necessary preparation. With Charles Rwanga, we have my uncle, because he's of Ngabi clan, Bukenya Paul. He's number 2, principal election officer, is number 2 in our public relations department. He's used to answering tough questions. And what I found is that they have an elaborate research and planning department, which does some of these research comparisons and which help Electoral Commission to take certain decisions based on what is done in other countries and within the country. Mr. Amon Natukwasa, he's from the Research and Planning Department. Interesting enough, I don't know if he'll be interested in being part of the book project. He has just concluded a research on invalid votes. he has done research on invalid votes, so he has answers on how those invalid votes come from. Otherwise, before I go into the comprehensive presentation, just preliminaries. One, we acknowledge receipt of a letter from ED to the chairperson, Electoral Commission, requesting him to make a presentation at the second sense-making seminar for the book project entitled Navigating Uganda's Political Future. The others are details. The Commission received this letter. All of us seven discussed it. Also reviewed the Commission's relationship with CBR. It was noted on occasions CBR has been one of the institutions which has been paraded for partnership in civic education, and also 2020 it was one of the institutions was supposed to do electoral observation. So CBR has a long history of relationship with the Electoral Commission. So they commended Center for Basic Research for its contribution to strengthening democracy and human rights in Uganda through research and publication. They also commended CBR for holding public institutions, including Electoral Commission, accountable through advocacy and other means. So we pledge, because I will be part of CBR's part Electoral Commission, so there is the confusion. Now, as Electoral Commission, we pledge to support CBR in its endeavor to publish the book on 2026. We shall provide whatever information they need to make sure the book project is a success. Of course, there are laws which tells us to do that. There might be areas where we may not give. I'll just give example. Whereas we acknowledge every election that should be secured, and police is the principal institution in ensuring that there's a security during voting. So we only tell police, make sure there's security. So don't come to Electoral Commission and ask who was deployed where. We want your deployment plan. We shall tell you to go to Inspector General of Police. Nevertheless, other forms of information which are needed to ensure that the book is a success will be given to you. And part of what could be done today, I've come to represent the chairperson. But that does not stop the people who will be on the book project to write to Electoral Commission and tell us they want to meet the entire commission. When you write that letter seeking to meet the entire commission, as long as you don't write it when it is too late, because we are entering the difficult period, but we shall be gladly available. You will be welcome. The only difference at that meeting is that the 6 colleagues will speak. I will declare my conflict of interest and I will not speak. But the other commissioners will be easily available, including the chair and the deputy chair, to have an engagement with all the researchers and provide whatever information you may need. So I'm going to the roadmap and the level of preparedness. I've already introduced my colleagues. They'll tell you briefly what, for example, Research and Planning Department. It is the CBR of Electoral Commission. They'll tell you what they do, the type of research they do. Public relationship, you know. Economic election management, that is more of the engine of the electoral process. 1 or 2 minutes they will tell you what they do. But before I give the level of preparedness and what we have done so far, Let me start by what I would consider to be our understanding of a free, fair, and a credible election. What ought to be in place, and what have we done so far? Without going into the debate between substantive and procedural democracy, substantive democracy, you go into issues of the general environment, human rights frameworks, and so on and so forth. I put a focus on issues relating to procedural democracy, what we understand fair and credible election constitute, and what we have done in the circumstances to ensure that 2026 elections are free, fair, credible. Things from political science perspective, from the demarcation of electoral areas, we believe electoral areas which should constitute the basis for people getting represented should be made in such a way that everybody feels he or she has an opportunity either to stand for elections or to vote. So this goes hand in hand with demarcation of constitutions. In democracy, this has always been a tricky area where we have history of people creating more electoral areas where they have support and less electoral areas where they don't have support. So it has been an issue in electoral politics. So the starting point is where are people going to stand for elections, and how have these institutions been created? Have we followed the basic principles which satisfy everybody? The second one is voter register. In most democracies, that is one of the fundamental things. Elections should ensure that every person who is eligible to vote should have an opportunity to vote. So you must make sure that you create a register which is 100% correct. From academia, I joked with the Rengabo the other day that when I used to give 90%, that would be an excellent student. Here at the Electoral Commission, we have been told with the register, there's nothing like 99.9%. If you have 99.9%, you have failed. So you must have a register which is 100% correct. So we shall discuss on what we are doing in that area. Of course, apart from ensuring that you have a register which is 100% correct, there is this principle of inclusiveness, principle of inclusiveness. A proper function democracy should ensure that as many people are involved in the entire process, both as voters and as candidates. Thanks to the framers of 1995 Constitution, there are so many frameworks which are put in board for women, youth, workers, people with disabilities to participate in the electoral process. Apart from principle of inclusiveness, apart from principle of inclusiveness, important process is the nomination process. Nomination process basically to ensure that whoever wishes to stand and has the qualification as by the Constitution should be given the opportunity to stand for election. So you have to make sure that the process of nomination is as transparent as possible. Nobody who has interest and who has not the interest and what it requires to stand should be excluded from the process of nomination. The next important process is the campaigning process. Campaigning process, after people have been nominated, we believe they should be given equal opportunity to reach out to their voters. They should be given equal opportunity to reach out to their voters. In terms of campaign, there shouldn't be sort of harassment of one kind or another. Unfortunately, there is what we call politics of crowds during the campaign process, with the candidates and parties trying to display who has a bigger crowd than the other. And in the process, a few things may go wrong. Otherwise, we believe for an election to be credible, the campaign process should be smooth, and whoever is supposed to meet his or her voters should have equal opportunity and chances. We also believe that on voting day, people should vote in a secure environment. The voting process should be free from any form of intimidation. Whoever wants to cast his or her vote should have the opportunity to do so. So after voting, it's also our belief that the transmission of votes, the counting of the votes before the transmission, should be done in a transparent way, and when everybody is satisfied, the transmission of these results from the polling station to the districts, though some people want the transmission to occur from the polling station direct to the center. We believe this process should be as transparent as possible. We also believe, as part of a process of ensuring free and fair election, there should be institutional management mechanism to deal with issues which may arise after. Uganda is one country, because now I'm being taught some bit of diplomacy. I'm not at liberty to comment on the electoral processes of our neighboring countries. I'm not at liberty, unfortunately. So, but Uganda is one country which has one of a robust judicial process after elections. There are countries where when the chairman electoral commission announces the results, no going to court. So we believe in our judicial processes, and we believe in case of issues which may arise as a result of the 2026 election, they will be ably handled by the courts of law. Of course, we also believe the role played by observers and other stakeholders in monitoring the entire electoral process across the road. So that is our understanding of a free, fair, and credible election. Of course, other people have their own understanding, perspective of what a free, fair, and credible election is. But from our perspective, the demarcation of electoral process and constituencies should be proper. The voter register should be 100% proper. The principle of inclusiveness, all marginalized groups should be given opportunities. The nomination process should be free from any encumbrances. The campaigning process should give all candidates equal opportunity to seek votes, and on the voting day, nobody should vote by intimidation or another force. People should be free to vote for the candidates of their choice, and the counting should be transparent, and the transmission of the results should equally be transparent. So how prepared are we as far as these tasks are concerned? Just try to go through a few things we have done. We have done a lot, but we may not elaborate all of them. We started by launching the roadmap on the 2nd of August 2023. We invited various stakeholders at the launch. After launching the roadmap, we we directed our staff in the field to do continuous voter education, but also on the 14th of October, we put a public notice inviting applications from competent, non-partisan, self-financing individuals, civil society organization, and community-based organization to be accredited to conduct voter education for 2025-2026. We put up this notice. Whoever wants to do voter education, though there is always confusion between civic education and voter education. According to it is the mandate of Human Rights Commission to do the civic education. Electoral Commission, voter education. The two are a little bit similar, but we invited civil society organizations which are interested to do the voter education. In August or September, we did the demarcation of electoral areas, especially for councillors. In 2020, there was a change of law that in rural areas, every 30,000 citizens should be represented by one councillor. In urban areas that time, how many? 50,000. A councillor would represent 50,000. 2020, Parliament in its wisdom, I think after receiving complaints that councillors were so many, they had nowhere even to sit. There were no resources to cater for them. 2020, a law was made by Parliament which increased the population for representation. For example, for urban areas, each councillor is supposed to represent 100,000 people from 50,000. The demarcation area was supposed to take into consideration that law, which increased the size of representation. So we did the demarcation, and we also reviewed the polling stations, because again, according to law, in rural areas, every polling station should have around 700, around there, 700. Urban areas, because of the concentration, no polling station should go beyond 12,000 voters. So in the case of increased population, we thought there's need for review of the areas of representation, but also the polling stations. In January, we are going to display the draft, not the final, at every sub-county or parish. At every parish, we are going to display the electoral areas. We are also going to display the polling station. Just a small challenge, however, is that we did the demarcation basing on the 2014 population census, because at that time we did not have the 2024 population census results. They were displayed, and I'm told this morning they gave another version, because for us to make that population operational, we need details up to the village. The 45 million is not enough. They should tell us that in village X there are 50,000 people, and on the basis of that, and then segregated according to age, and on the basis of that, we work out the electoral areas and also work on the voter register. So we have that constraint. Having said that, we are going to display the demarcated areas. We are also going to display the polling areas, and with the complaints which we shall receive from the population, we shall revise them and come up with a final list. We are also going to display the voter register, because as I said, with voter register, we don't have 99%. The voter register must be 100% accurate. So the voters registers are going to be displayed in January for public scrutiny. Committees will be put in place to review these registers and advise whether the registers are accurate. If there are people who are not supposed to be on the list, we shall be advised, and then with their advice, we shall come up with what we believe is the accurate register. Then, of course, identification and mapping of PWDs. We have also been undertaking an exercise of marking PWDs. Probably, if I'm not mistaken, we are likely to have the most up-to-date list on PWDs in the entire country, not only in numbers, but the categories of disabilities as well. We have compiled the list, though in the process of compilation, some people, we are complaining that their categories have been left out. They have sexual problems, but they are not among those categorized as PWs. So we have gone by the law, and we are also supposed to display the list of PWs alongside the list of the other voters. In order to do that, of course, currently we are recruiting staff. We are recruiting staff who will be presiding officers and polling officers for 2026. The exercise is going to be concluded next week. Next week. Again, we shall display the lists for public scrutiny. So if we have indicated somebody whom the public thinks ought not to be on the list, we shall review it and then come up with lists which is acceptable to the public. So before I come to stakeholder engagement, so from March to June, we are going to hold the relevant elections vis-a-vis seats, special interest groups, because some of them vote through councils. So we have to make sure that the councils which are supposed to vote are in place. When are we nominating? September? MPs? I have the list anyway. Yeah. In July, we expect all public servants who are interested in being nominated to render resignation. Around August or so, we shall nominate candidates for members of parliament. In October, we shall nominate presidential candidates. Around 2nd or 3rd October. Thereafter, campaigns will begin, and around the 1st or 2nd week of February, we shall conduct the national parliamentary presidential and some local government elections. Then soon after those elections, we shall go into what CBR started with, LC1 elections. The current LCs, if I'm not mistaken, their term are going to be extended to 2026. I think the law allows that, but soon after, we are going to conduct LC1 elections. So that's the roadmap, and that's partly what we have done as Electoral Commission. Of course, on the way, we are the few challenges here and there. Some stakeholders insist that 2026 election, we should go electronic. They have their own reason why they think we should go electronic. I'm told our colleagues from Namibia who embarked on electronic voting, they have decided to go back to manual. But there is a commission in Namibia, Professor Varia's colleague, Obi, who is in Namibia, is going to bring a report for us from Namibia to draw lessons. So that's, of course, in terms of challenges, if we have to go electronic, it means that we have to buy all the necessary technology to ensure that by that time we are 100% ready. And it's not, by the way, a very bad idea. It's an interesting idea. It helped us in Kisoro. When we were in Kisoro, I oversaw Bufumbira North, and I think some of our staff had been compromised. One was ordered to release ballot papers, and they did the ticking, stuffed the ballot box. We were alerted. We had our staff arrested. I hope he will be prosecuted. And we just used the machine to get out the wrong ballot papers, because the machine records the serial number of every ballot, every valid ballot paper. So when this person put 160 votes, when in actual sense only 57 people had voted, it was very easy for us to sort it out, and I hope the police is going to handle that. So that is challenge number one. Challenge number two, of course, as I said, by January, the electoral areas should be ready, the voter register should be ready, but we are still trying to make sense of the results of UBOS, because they have very serious implications on how you demarcate areas. Because as I said, according to law, rural areas, 30,000 have to be represented by one councillor, and in urban areas, 100,000 have to be represented by one councillor. So if those numbers are not accurate, it may cause some slight problems. So the other issue, challenge, and then I leave the floor for discussion. My colleagues will give some remarks. Other issue also I wish to comment on in terms of level of preparedness. One other issue, of course, issue of public trust. Issue of public trust. For us to conduct free and fair election, the public should trust that we can do things properly. Unfortunately, this is something we are grappling with. There are some people who are not convinced that we have the capacity and capability to conduct free and fair election. And of course, associated with that, social media. As we draw nearer to elections, good enough, we have very strong stuff. But as we draw near to elections, we are likely to have a lot of bashing, a lot of misinformation. Just drawing from Kololo again, it is on Mukutu, a former minister, a member of Central Executive Committee, who was on social media claiming Catholics and Protestants are killing one another in Kololo, that they have got bangers and they cannot allow anybody to walk. Say, wait a minute, I was in Bufumbira. In fact, in Bufumbira North, most of the voting was in around churches, majority of which were Catholic, whatever. When it started raining, people shifted into the cathedrals. Only that I told them, before you go inside the cathedral, the priest should give you permission. People voted. In Catholic cathedrals, a Protestant candidate won, and people were happy. So the electoral commission, we have done this. So when a senior government official goes on Mukutu, claiming the Protestants and Catholics are cutting one another in Kololo, so that's the misinformation. And we are likely to have as much as that as we draw nearer to elections. And of course the other one, another video which came up at 6 in the morning. The video was very clear, it was daylight, and indicating ballot stuffing in Kololo. And when you scrutinize the video, a very flat area, say, how can you take a video in Kololo without a sign of a hill or a mountain? So it's quite a flat area. And with that scuffle, the language being spoken, there was no Ruchiga, no Nyarwanda, no Rufumbira. So how can you have a scuffle about stuffing in Kololo and you don't hear even a single person speaking Rufumbira in a flat area? And it came out at 6 in the morning, showing daylight. So in short, we are likely to have those issues, social media, being used properly or not properly, but we shall try to handle that. Last year, of course, normally says, the challenges we expect: one, commercialization of elections. Elections have become extremely expensive. On average, 2020 election, I'm told you needed 500 million. Now, on average, around 1 billion. 1 billion. So, and unfortunately, to bribe voters is illegal, but unfortunately, 90% of that bribery takes place before people are candidates. So if somebody is in the village now, greeting the people, what do? You don't have candidates yet, but money is being spent. Money is being spent. So we have that challenge. The commercialization distorts electoral outcomes. Possibly, just I had forgotten, there are some laws, electoral reforms, which need to be enacted. Before certain things are done. And 2016, I think I was telling Paul that CBI is guilty as accused, because in that book, Controlling Consent, there was a chapter on the right of prisoners and right of people in the diaspora to vote. And the courts pronounced themselves on that. In fact, they ordered, it was a court order that prisoners and people in the diaspora should vote. Unfortunately, the existing laws, especially for prisoners, we are not supposed to conduct elections in security installations. So we cannot have voting in a barracks. We can't have voting in a prison. And you cannot risk getting the prisoners out to come and vote briefly. and then they go back. So around Luzira, if they are, say, 7,000 or 14,000, you have to create 20 polling stations outside. So there is need for law possible to be enacted so that there is that exception allowing us to conduct the elections, at least within the prisons. Current procedures does not allow that. With the diaspora, I think there is also a complication in the law. Somebody votes, the place designated as a place to vote, area of birth, and area of residence. So the law restricts us. So there is need, since it was a court order, we hope those responsible will ensure that these laws are reformed as quickly enough so that these categories are allowed to vote. For the time being, I think that's what I can present. Later on, I'll give the executive director the entire roadmap indicating the details of what we are supposed to do and at what time. It's a public document. We are not going to put it in our drawers. It's a public document. So that when we skip a date and say on 1st March, you are supposed to have done ABCD. We have not seen you do that. Yeah, you can hold us accountable. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. So far, so that's what I can say. And as I say,